Welcome, everybody. The show's called The Next Chapter. I'm your host, Amazon best-selling author Fred Hughes. And next chapter, we talk about all things involved with being an author or being a writer. Sometimes we'll have author on to discuss their work, how they became writers, how they got their stuff published. We also have a variety of other people in the industry to discuss events in the industry and things pertaining to books. This week's guest, which will be on a little later, is Crystal Gayle, Crystal Schuh Gayle, who is the chairman of the Pecan convention that's held in Dallas-Fort Worth. The next one is this September. Conventions are another way for an author to increase their branding. It's important. But before we get into branding and talking about conventions, I want to do another shameless book plug. My latest book that just came out, Crippled Disciple, was out on June the 1st, selling very well. This is an independent published book. I wrote it and published, Fred Hughes Publishing put it out, my own publishing company. It's about space battles in the near future, like 50 years from now, and what that might look like. So if you enjoy that sort of thing and with a little bit of an edge to it, pick it up. A lot of people like it so far, and people like the rest of the books in the series. So, branding. We've talked about it before, and sometime in the future I'm likely to do a whole show about it. I hear so many authors, I got into, I don't want to say an argument, we got into a discussion the other day about authors making money and how so many of them get depressed that they've written a book, they think it's pretty good, they've gotten good reviews, they just haven't sold many books. And being an author is a business, and it's not any different than, someone who opens, a little local Italian bistro. The guy who owns that place is only making money when he has guests, people that come in to eat. Well, how do people know how good his stuff is? How do people know that his little Italian restaurant even exists? Well, he has to advertise in one way or another. Can't rely solely on word of mouth. He advertises. You can't, as an author with a book, you can't rely on word of mouth. You have to advertise. You have to get the word out. Now, there are a lot of ways of advertising. You can post it on your Facebook page. You can get your friends and family to buy books, but eventually that the number of people who follow you on Facebook, that well dries up. The number of friends and family you have eventually dries up, and even the people they might recommend eventually dries up. To be a top-selling author, you need to sell, I'm going to say, 5 equivalent books a day. That's 150 books a month. People probably argue about this, but for every 10 people that you advertise to, you might get one of them that will even consider buying your book. So it means you have to reach a lot of people. Conventions, what we're going to talk about today, is one of those ways. You go to convention, and first off, you can make contacts. You can find other authors that talk about, how do I spread the word about my stuff, my books. You have the ability to interact with fans. You likely have the ability to actually sell paperback versions of your books, set up a display, and then interact with people that walk by your table. To be best-selling author, you cannot be an introvert. I'm a perfect example. I'm not the kind of person who, if you asked me 3 years ago, would I be sitting in front of a camera talking about writing and stuff? No, I could never imagine myself doing this. But it's part of what an author needs to do. Being an author is a business. So let's talk about conventions. The convention that we're going to discuss today with Crystal Schuh Gayle, is a fan convention. Heavy on fantasy and science fiction. Regular science thrown in. There's other things you can go in there. If you're a D&D gamer, you can go. Most of these fan conventions have gaming. They have music. They have anime. They have cosplay. So you can probably, if there's a convention near you, if you live in a major town, I guarantee you there's several conventions that happen there. Now, as an author, you have to pick and choose because they're not cheap. I mean, it costs to go to them. If you're going to sell books, then you have that expense on top of it. But you have to pick and choose where you're going, what's the biggest bang for the buck for your available dollars. You have to pick a convention that is suitable for the genre you write in. Perfect example for me. Relatively new to the business. There is, here in the Dallas-Fort Worth, I'll give them a shout out, there's Texas AuthorCon, which happened, they don't intend to be a horror, mystery, zombie type convention, but a majority of the people who participate are in those categories. The year I went, I think there were 60 people in the dealer's room over 2 days. I was only one of 5 who didn't fit in the horror, post-apocalyptic, zombie type situation. I didn't sell a whole lot because the people who were coming there saw the people who were there, and it's like, oh, I like horror, I want to come to this. You'll quickly find in the business that if you're people tend to stick to genres that they have an affinity to, and they don't buy books in other genres. Horror people might not probably don't necessarily or not necessarily into military science fiction, might not be into fantasy. Now, there's always people who like everything. Same thing goes for fantasy and science fiction. It's almost like Star Trek and Star Wars. You have to choose, a lot of people say, well, you have to pick, you're either a Star Trek fan or a Star Wars fan. You can't be both. That's not necessarily true. But in writing, you will find that there are science fiction readers who will not touch fantasy. No, it's not. Nope. Science fiction is real, or I perceive that it'll be real. Fantasy is all makeup, and I can't get into that. And vice versa. People that like fantasy is like, I want escapism. I don't want to deal with real life events. So pick your convention. Look and see if it caters to your needs as an author, and then decide what do you want to do there. Do I want to participate in panels? Do I want to interact with other authors there and pick their brains? Do I want to possibly interact with publishers to pitch a book idea? These are all things you can do at conventions. So it's important that you find a way to go to ones that are suitable to you. So Crystal Schuh Gayle will be on later on to talk about the local convention here in Dallas-Fort Worth, and you might want to consider whether or not it's worthwhile for you you to make a trip to Dallas to come to this convention. Even if you don't participate, you can interact with people that will be there. You can interact with me, I'll be there. And I'm always, just like this show, happy to tell you how I think you can survive. So, as an author. So, coming up right after the break, Crystal Schuh Gayle. I'm Fred Hughes, and this is the next chapter. Welcome back. This is the next chapter. I'm Fred Hughes, and I'm happy to welcome our guest this week, as already talked about her, Crystal Schuh Gayle, the head of Pecan, local convention here in Dallas-Fort Worth. Welcome to the show, Crystal.
Thank you for having me, Fred.
So, tell us, how do you suddenly become the director of a science fantasy convention?
Don't have drinks with Jonna Hayden or Ian at a convention because they'll put ideas in your head and you'll say the ideas are cool and you will go with it. And next thing you know, you have people giving you money and saying this is a great idea. And you start building a base of funds and then people, and you get to meet amazing artists, writers, and they become one of your great friends in your back pocket. So it evolved over a period of time, and it's been an amazing journey. So that I can't just tell you it happened overnight. It did not.
Now, there's sort of I don't know exactly how to describe the relationship between Pecan and FenCon, which is another convention here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But I don't want to say that one time, but Pecan is basically an offshoot of FenCon. Is that right or not right? No, not right.
Not an offshoot. It is an independent business of its own. FinCon is a great convention in our area. They are built on a premise of having a board of directors, and then they have what they call a con chair. And that con chair rotates every year. And it brings a different flavor to the convention, which is one of its, they always have themes for the convention, and they have a great volunteer base of staff, and that helps run that convention. So that's how FinCon evolved. It's basically a convention for fans, and they do a great job in bringing authors. The con chair, it has an opportunity to bring a writer, artists, musicians of what they enjoy. And that's FinCon. And then Pecan in itself is privately owned by myself. And I created it to basically, I hate to say, like a hippie vibe, bar setting, just to come in and enjoy, hearing authors, musicians. So it is your basic literary convention, but we don't have themes. We don't have a revolving con chair. I have staff that are on we're a volunteer basis, like almost every convention out there. And we set up an environment in which writers, artists, fans can come and hang out for a weekend and enjoy a good vibe. We're apolitical. We want to keep, disagreements, arguments, unless you're talking about Klingon, fractions and our Star Wars fantasy drama fanfic. Those are up for grabs. But our convention is basically an area where nerds, geeks can come together and enjoy each other's company. And on that aspect, the industry, literary industry, can network and meet up. We've seen some contracts, in the last con, people were able to sign contracts with publishers. Artists were able to get some deals done. We have a dealer's room. We have programming. It's a typical literary convention, but on our end, we don't have a con chair, we don't have a theme. We kind of fashion ourselves over LibertyCon. Like Brandy has become a mentor for me, and I talk to her periodically with what I consider small, silly questions, but she really takes it to heart and gives me great tidbits on how LibertyCon has grown. I mean, I'm gonna go to the convention that sells out every year, and what she brings to the table is amazing. And I want to do something similar with Pecan.
Well, I mean, I was fortunate enough to coerce an invite last year to be an author at the convention, and I know that all of that is extraordinarily true. I mean, being able to interact with the different authors. I mean, a wide variety of them. I mean, I'm sitting on a panel with Jane Linsgold talking about women, how I was in the panel anyway. It was talking about women in science fiction. And it's like, how am I on a panel with Jane Linsgold talking about women in science fiction? And one of the giants in the industry is right there. Yeah, I mean, but it was all laid back, and I think it filtered down through all the people that were there, starting with you and Jonna and all the others that were, all volunteers running it, and then even down to the guest. It was great, and it was great to interact. And I've made some pretty good friends from that convention. So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was just say the convention. Like I said, it starts from a small little group called North Texas Troublemakers. They enjoy life, they enjoy reading, they enjoy the literary arts, and they promote people. If you really want to try your hand at writing, it's a group that will promote you and give you positive feedback, and try to cultivate you into your art form. Mine happens to be running conventions, so.
And that's a good point, because a couple of weeks ago, on this show, I interviewed Ian and Jim on the show, talking about short stories and anthology and Raconteur Press and everything like that. And something for the audience out there, if you're in North Texas or easy driving distance, I mean, the hotel gives really good rates. If you want to come into town, stay at the hotel, visit Dallas, Fort Worth, and go to the convention. This is a good place for a new author to attend a convention and meet some of these people. If you've got a short story or whatever, come to this convention. You can, Raconteur Press is going to be there. There's going to be some other publishers there that you can talk about your short story. People that you can talk about, or hook up with other authors and, interact with them, and they can tell you, oh, this is where you should shop your short story. So it's a great event for new authors to go to interact with people in the business. So
That is correct.
we got a minute till the break, and we can start talking about it. Talking about this, then we'll take a break and come back to it. But this year's primary guest, the Hollows, how did you manage to snag them?
I asked. I actually met them at LibertyCon and fell in love with HP because her personality just exudes her aura around her. I love people that have a charisma, and she has this charisma with her husband, and they write so well together. And then on the other side, she has her persona, Eddie Skies, which is raunchy romance. And to be honest, I am a sci-fi romance reader. And so that kind of fell in play with me. And then also she plays Pokemon. So I figured that would, attract to the younger crowd, which we've always been trying to do in the convention world, is to bring the younger genre
Yes.
to
It's not
sci-fi
like
literacy,
LibertyCon where it's a bunch of
sci-fi
old.
fantasy literacy.
Yeah, it's not like LibertyCon where it's a bunch of old guys. Anyway, we got to go for a break, and then we'll come back and talk more about the guest and Pecan. I'm Fred Hughes. This is The Next Chapter. And we're back and talking to Crystal Schuh Gayle about the Pecan Convention and how she got started in it. And we were talking about this year's guest. And you have the husband and wife team of the Hollows and how you snagged them. What about the other guests? I mean, a typical convention has a variety of guests. Why not why don't you tell the viewers about it's not just about science fiction and fantasy. You also have other experts that are there.
We do. Last year, we kind of bit off more than we can chew, and we had over 5 guests. And so this year, we're having to scale back because of budget, and that's okay because we're going to go a little bit smaller and grow, um, and put a positive on this. So we are actually looking for a science go. I am a nerd from A&M and I love science STEM. I teach scouts and stuff, outside doors education. We had Jeff Gleason last year and he was amazing. Space, a space guy. I was just like in nerd heaven with him around, and he was just so cordial and relaxed and a true gentleman. And so, coming up on his coattails, we're looking at some science goes right now, and recommendations are flowing in. So, hopefully, around LibertyCon, I'll have an announcement on our science go. But at the convention, we want to have more than just your sci-fi fantasy. My first convention was FinCon, and when I went there, and this is what I want people to experience when they come to PCon. I want them to get your nerd and your geek on, but I also want you to be able to, if someone wants to teach about cake decorating for the fandom, great. If someone wants to talk about men in kilts and their wives, amazing. If we want to have a mad scientist center like LibertyCon has, or there's a Imaginarium that has a full array of scheduling that's just out of the pocket, or you have places like AllCon. I can go on, forever on conventions and what they offer, but I want PCon not to bring something for everybody to, yes, I want to dive into my sci-fi fantasy, but I also want to be able to meet other people with other interests and be able to sit in a panel and have amazing conversations. One panel I was on, as an organizer, it's hard to get on a panel because you're organizing the con, what's going on, was about vampires. And I was, like I said, reader, vampires are right up there on my alley. And I was on a great panel of writers from Courtney Bryant, Mona Lisa. Oh, my Declan was on there, and he was the moderator. So you always have a moderator on a panel, and they control the flow of the conversation because we kind of get out of hand sometimes. And but he was a great conversation. He had us going all over the world on vampire lore, research capabilities. So that was another thing I really enjoyed about that panel and other panels I've heard about is you get to hear from other writers, artists, and you get to hear how they research, how they got into the industry, how, what publishers and editors they've worked with, artists for book covers. You get to meet all these type of people at these conventions, and it's just an amazing vibe, and that's what we strive for every year.
So obviously, it sounds like Courtney Bryant is who I'm referring to for those out there in the audience, who's handling the scheduling for this year's convention, has her work cut out for her, both to come up with interesting sessions and to get the people to fill the spots on them. I know, and I'm going to drop this out there, and one of the most interesting ones in last year's, and I'm not all-knowing. I haven't been to a ton of conventions, been to more as a fan than as a professional, but the care and feeding of authors last year, I thought was a very interesting panel where you had the wives or husbands of authors up there talking about, well, this is how I support my significant other in, what he does. And I know my wife enjoyed being on that panel. But anyway, so Courtney Bryant's handling that. You're going to have a science expert. What else is PCon going to highlight? I mean, obviously, science fiction and fantasy, there's going to be some science panels. Anything else that'll be of interest to the folks out there?
So we're looking at the new hotel. We're at the Holiday Inn South DFW. Link will go up hopefully into this week or early next week. But they have a patio there, and I want to take advantage of some workshops. So looking for DIY cosplay, bookbinding. I mean, whoever wants to reach out to me and Courtney, we have a space right now to really do some hands-on workshops within reason. And then also musicians. I love musicians. My tech team, they've got to deal with all the technology, but I want to have some musicians come in. I don't think we're going to do a music go like we did last year with Opal and Jade, who are amazing, by the way. They're on the Ren Fair circuit right now. Um, but and they're always invited back because they are just a hoot and enjoyable to listen to their comedy routine for both families and for raunchy adults. They have an R-rated show. Were great to have at the con, but I'm thinking of twisting that and just inviting and giving like an open mic. If you want to be on panels and you want to come and sing and perform for the Pecan guests, we can negotiate a situation. But I think as like a main guest of honor, I just want to do like a musical track. And if we can pull that off, that'd be amazing. But it would give musical talents, be it paraphrasing like Weird Al Yankovic, or someone that just wants to come and sing a good old Irish ballad. I'm not going to say no. This is for our community of nerds and geeks to come hang out and have fun and to showcase your art. If that's something you want to do, everybody is welcome.
Okay. So Pecan is essentially different conventions focus on, you've already touched on it, different elements. Some are like LibertyCon and Pecan, which you're trying to fashion after LibertyCon, very fan-centric, where I don't want to say a limited number of fans, but small number of fans. It's not Dragon Con where there's 50,000 people and it's just overwhelming. But then they do a lot of other things. But fans can interact, literally interact, walk up, you'll see, David Weber or I'm going brain dead, but all major players in science fiction and fantasy at the convention, and you can walk right up and talk to them. And part of the reason is that's the reason why they're there. They want to interact with the fans. So it's really a fan interaction convention, as opposed to some other conventions, which is, we're really a teaching convention. We want to teach authors how to write, and we have all these writing symposiums and how to create characters and things like that, and a little bit of other things. Or it's more, slanted toward other things. When I say other things, I mean it's a lot of science, a lot of esoteric things, as opposed to science fiction and fantasy. And that's not all you're going to do. So, and I know that Courtney's putting the programming together, but what do you want as the chairman?
Courtney is amazing. And here's the thing. If Courtney is going to spend all the hours and the woman has an amazing whiteboard on her wall, basically she puts yellow stickies up with all the phrases and stuff. So programming, I'm going to touch a little bit on programming. Programming, what happens is that for a fanfic convention, we're going to send out a link to panelists and to other individuals, and they're going to tell us what topics they want to bring to the table. And we're going to say, yes, that's a good fix. Nah, maybe it's not, but could you do something on another caliber for us? And try to bring them all together into what we call Pecan Convention. And Courtney is amazing at that aspect. And so she will be sending out a programming link here shortly. And if anybody has any questions for that, she can be reached at programming@p-con.us. And and we take those, we might not reach back out to you, but we do take all those emails to heart because, like I said, we're trying to create the community of fans, writers, artists to come together and enjoy themselves. So, in answer to your question about how a convention, Pecan is going to, what we want to evolve it into is for the community. So it's going to have, yes, it's going to have a writers panel, maybe with editors and stuff talking about how they do business. So you're going to have that business aspect right there. But in the next room, you're going to have someone like you were on a panel, caregivers, which by the way was a pull from the audience type panel for, panelists. So you never know if you're going to be pulled onto a panel by Courtney.
We need to go to a break, and we'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I know. It's funny, isn't it? As we went into the break, Crystal was passionately talking about panels. So let's go back and revisit that, Crystal, and how Courtney puts the panels together, and how literally you've sort of given her a free hand, and the different type of panels. So let's go back and revisit and talk about that some more.
Okay. Like I said, the panels are Courtney's baby as a staff member. Um, like I said, all the time she spends on it, at the end of the day, it's her. I always give her free reign. And that's the same with all my staff members. They're close friends. They're people I've worked at other conventions, I've met along the way. It's just not, like I said, this is never just my journey or me. It's a lot of other people. Like in tech, we have Todd Caldwell. He's head of tech. He has Tim Miller that helps him. And then they get front row seats, to be honest, because they're in the very back, but yet they're seeing everything involved on main programming. And then they're setting up other mics in other rooms. And then you have gaming. I have Wally. He's an amazing gamer. He's the one that brought Chuck Gannon and the other gamers together, Jane, on that one where you auctioned for a seat. And the two people that won it were just like, this is amazing. I get to, like you said, you get to sit with other people that you would like. Chuck Gannon's written all these works of art, and then you have my husband, Sam Gale. He's amazing. He puts up with, all my stuff, the late nights going to Pecan, but he also does our logistics. So he helps us, like FinCon, Anime Fest, will loan us gear. And we're very thankful for these other conventions because they do help us out. And we hope we help them out as well. So it's like I'll spend my time at other conventions volunteering to help out wherever they're needed. So it's a small community family that we help each other out. My registration, I got a shout out to there. That's Finney Rice and Katia. They're going to be your first. They're going to be the people you meet when you come check in. They're going to give you your badge. They're going to give you the maps and the brochures and the links for the convention, what's going down, and they're amazing at what they do. So I'm just very grateful for all the staff that help out, and they're always year round. We're talking, we're planning. So it is a passion of love, and they're on other conventions too, doing staff. So they just enjoy this. So if you ever want to, learn about conventions or be on staff to help out, and just, you get a front row seat to who the guest of honors are, to be honest. And we make time for them to meet up and stuff. So, but you were mentioning guests like Chuck Gannon, Larry Correa. My one thing when I was a guest of honor wrangler, I was doing Eric Flint. And my claim to fame with Eric Flint is that I locked his luggage in my car and I had to climb in the back seat to go get it in the middle of the hotel, for the hotel, in front of God and everybody, and Mr. Flint as well. So that, and we had a great time together, but that was my introduction to him for me. So you just never know what you're going to find yourself in when you're meeting your fan moment, with your writers
Yeah,
or artists.
It's all of a sudden you go from being, semi-important to being just another fanboy or fangirl out there. With Eric, I met him twice, just, in passing, and he didn't know me from Adam. And unfortunately for all of us, he's gone now. But nice, cool story. But putting on a convention, it's not just, there's a lot of nuts and bolts to it. And the 3 days, and as you've pointed out, the 3 days that Pecan's going to go on literally takes you spend most of a year getting ready for that. And so let's talk about venues, because that might be the most important and hardest thing that any convention has to deal with.
That is right. That is correct. We've had some conventions where they've just dissolved because of no venue. Our case in our venue, we were expecting 300 last year, and we ended up with only 120, and that's okay. That was the market. We overshot. We had a lot of people had to cancel at the last minute. A lot of the economy was not in favor of us. So we just had some aspects that hit us hard. So we're rebounding, but on a positive thought process, we're going to a smaller venue. We believe everybody is excited about the space. All the volunteers that have seen it, the staffers that have seen it, they're excited about the space. It's going to be unusual. It's going to be homey. It's going to be close knit. And that's basically what we're wanting to bring. But I think we're going to have some fun this year, and I'm looking forward to it. And yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. So smaller venue this year, but and you already touched on the logistics of sound equipment and all of that, and tickets and processing that. I guess like you can equate it to like almost a wedding, with everything that you have to orchestrate between, guest and event planning. It's like a big wedding at a major venue.
Sort of. I like to call it a big birthday party.
Okay, there you go. Even a better example.
Have a celebration, yeah.
Mm. So
yeah, no, there's a lot of spinning pies, spinning plates, that we're going, and sometimes they crash. And I know horror stories of conventions, and you'll never know that they happen because it just the team congeals and runs so well together. You pick your battles. You figure out what is your end goal, and our end goal is to have fun, is to enjoy each other's time, to meet old friends, meet new friends, meet the friends you never knew you needed or wanted. And that's one of our slogans too, is just to come together. And like I said, it's a big celebration of what we enjoy.
Well,
in the sci-fi and fantasy fandoms.
Well, I think it was extraordinarily successful last year. Even if the convention didn't meet expectations, it was the first year. As far as didn't get as many fans. I don't want to say you didn't meet expectations, because everybody that was there had a good time. But, first year, now second year, I'll bet we'll have 300, 400 people there this year. I know I'm inviting everybody I know, and I'm still trying to convince Bill Webb to come. So, anyway, thank you, Crystal. Mentions, they're important. They're a way to increase your brand. So next week, new show. Hope to see you there. This is Fred Hughes, and this is The Next Chapter.